reports that Terray had not in fact written the book. It had been ghostwritten by Roger Nimier, his editor at Gallimard. The wife of one of his climbing partners seemed to confirm this. He was a bit of a country bumpkin, she claimed. His writing, even in letters, was only semi-literate. While researching for my own book about Annapurna, my French editor Michel Guérin asked Marianne Terray for the key to the family home, a hillside chateau in Grenoble. In 1965, Terray had been using a room there as a study. It was from here that he set out for that final climb in the Vercors with Marc Martinetti. Neither returned alive. The key opened a creaky door on the third floor. Everything was covered with dust. The wallpaper hung peeling from the walls. Old mirrors had grown cloudy and speckled. Michel had been given permission by Marianne to look for old letters. There were piles and piles of papers on tabletops, in closets, inside desk and bureau drawers. There was something claustrophobic and depressive about the place. It was hard to imagine the blithe mountaineer living even temporarily in such squalor. We were about to go when Michel, poking through another closet, found a bulging folder with a sheaf of loose pages. "That's Terray's handwriting," he said, scanning the lines. I peered over his shoulder as he leafed through the carefully written manuscript. A moment later, he let out a curse under his breath. "It's the manuscript of Les Conquérants," he said softly. Later, back in Chamonix, we studied this lost relic carefully. It was word for word what Gallimard published. So much for Roger Nimier. Among the many revelations of my research, none was more gratifying than this chance find. The authorship of Conquistadors of the Useless belonged fully to the man who not only had performed those great deeds in the mountains, but had found, with no help from another, the right words to memorialize them. Thus it is a deep pleasure now to invite a whole new generation to experience Conquistadors and discover Terray's truth, which shines forth 4 decades later with all the dazzling brilliance of his finest climbs. 1. Discovery. I have given my whole life to the mountains. Born at the foot of the Alps, I have been a ski champion, a professional guide, an amateur of the greatest climbs in the Alps, and a member of 8 expeditions to the Andes and the Himalayas. If the word has any meaning at all, I am a mountaineer. In apparent contradiction to this way of life, it so happens that I have had to give a great many lectures illustrated with slides. One evening, after one of these lectures, I was invited for a drink to the home of some local celebrity. A dark-suited professional man came up, looked me intently in the face, and said quietly, "You interested me very much, monsieur." As I muttered my thanks in some conventional phrase or other, he went on, "But what do you normally do for a living? An engineer? A teacher?" The good man could not hide his surprise when I replied, "Not at all, monsieur. I am a mountain guide, pure and simple." Later, in my bleak hotel room, trying with difficulty to sleep after the nervous excitement of 2 hours of intense concentration in front of an audience, the man's words came back to me. I began to realize that the rather storybook life I had led had made me into a person of unusual duality. I saw that for anyone seeing me for the first time, in collar and tie and lounge suit, giving a lecture on the human geography of the Himalayas, I bore no resemblance to the real man behind this worldly facade, the mountaineer, that figure which a conventional literature has fixed in everybody's mind as a rough, crude-mannered peasant. And so, for the first time, I appreciated the full strangeness of the fate which had turned a child born to a family of middle-class intellectuals into a conqueror of the highest and most difficult mountains in the world. The story begins at Grenoble, in a sort of chateau covered with Virginia creeper, built on the side of a hill above the town. There I was born, and one of my first sights must have been the shining barrier of the snowy peaks of the Belle Donne range, opposite our large, comfortable